to Dollar Box Reads with Jason Tudor.
It's a Saturday night, and I ain't got nobody. I just got some money because I just got paid sort of podcast. What's happening, everybody? It's your old pal, Jason Tudor. Welcome you back to Dollar Box Reads. Surprise, it's a podcast. Yes, I've been away for a while, and for a lot of reasons. And unfortunately, these breaks have been too often lately, from about June to now. I've been trying to minimize them as much as I can. I just haven't been doing a very good job. I apologize for that. The goal is to get this podcast published once a week. The goal is to try to actually do it live for you first, but right now we're going to have to stick to this format and talk a little bit about that. But welcome back to Dollar Box Reads. My name is Jason Tudor. I am really glad you're along. But before I get into that, please subscribe on Apple iTunes, Spotify, whatever your podcast dealer du jour is. Please subscribe and like this podcast as quickly as possible. I want to get your input on this as we go forward to help this grow and become a show of choice. So if you would, please just pop that subscribe button, Spotify, wherever it may be, and I would sure appreciate that. Also on YouTube, I think this video also gets to YouTube through Libsyn. I would be appreciative of that. I should let you know that this show is brought to you by Crazy Monkey Inc. Crazy Monkey Inc. is a producer of fantastic comic books like mine, and I will tell you more about some exciting news with my comic book going on later. But Crazy Monkey Inc. has Darum. They have Crazy Monkey Inc. has Darum. They have Taxi Cab Joe. They have 5 Star. They have Head Shrinkers Presents, and they have much, much more. So what I want you to do is go over to indieplanet.com/crazy and search for Crazy Monkey Inc. and all the wonderful titles are going to come up, and I want you to buy every single one of them 5 times. All right, you're not going to be able to do that, but I want you to buy the copies. These are great comics. You're supporting an independent comic maker just as you would support a small business in your hometown, and I want you to do that because it's the right thing to do, and you're going to make some artist or some writer or some letterer or some colorist very, very happy, and you're going to make Gabe, our publisher, very, very happy. Crazy Monkey Inc. has got great, compelling titles, and I hope you'll give us a try. Again, indieplanet.com. I believe it's and search for Crazy Monkey Inc., and you'll find Vorpal, my comic there, and much, much more. I should also tell you that Vorpal 1 and 2 is available from indieplanet.com. Just search indieplanet.com for Vorpal, and both issues will come up. You can also go to indieplanet.com/Vorpal, and they will both come up that way. I believe they are $5.99 each in print. And just in time for Thanksgiving, my friends, they will be free from the Thanksgiving Thursday until the following Monday. So if you're looking to get into Vorpal, you'll want to because issue 3 is right around the corner, literally right around the corner. You can pick up your e-copies from Thursday to Monday. You can pick them up on indieplanet.com, or you can get them from Spinwiz Comics and my friend Jeff Palumbo, who's doing a fantastic job with that site. I really appreciate that he's hosting the comic there, and he's only taking a small cut, just a little cut of the profits for the comic books. He's a good dude. So don't forget Crazy Monkey Inc., all the great titles, but don't forget about Vorpal. It makes a great stocking stuffer, and hopefully issue 3 will do that as well. So we will get to some issue 3 news toward the end of the podcast, and I have no idea how long this bad boy is going to run. But I'm back, and I wanted to talk to you about a few things that are going on in pop culture, specifically in the Star Wars realm. And I thought there were a number of compelling things, enough to finally get me out of wherever I was and get you back on the microphone to talk about some stuff like that. Again, I am amiss for not having old comics, but I will say this. So I was in another country earlier today. We were touring one of the Christmas markets in another country. And in order to get to the Christmas market, you have to go through this mall. And two things happened that were magical. One was there was a hobby store, and I've really gotten back into model making, something I used to do as a kid, and I really put it off forever. I don't know why I did. But I've got a bunch of new models in, and a lot of the models are aircraft that I was stationed with overseas or something like that, or not overseas, but aircraft I was stationed with at my military assignments, each one. So I'm starting to collect those. I'm starting to collect the models that I really liked growing up. So I've got the F-14 Jolly Rogers from the Navy Squadron VF-84. I've got the same VF-84 aircraft from 1960s Vietnam, which would be the F-4. And I've got a U-2 spy plane and some other things. I've got this huge stack of models now that I've got to build. It's hilarious. And I'm also back into this, or I'm really into this game called DCS World, Digital Combat Simulation World, which is made in Russia. But it's a flight simulator. You do combat, and it's super fun. I've gone so far as to get a Thrustmaster joystick. It's crazy, but that's been occupying my time as well. So in any case, what's fantastic about this mall was they had this hobby store. It was just filled with all these beautiful models and all the things to build them. But we were running out of time, and I've already spent some money this week. Dang it. So I couldn't buy any models there. But then across the way is this beautiful French comic book store. It had all this beautiful manga, these hardback comics, and we went to a grocery store in France called Cora. And Cora also had a beautiful big comic book section, all these beautiful hardback books printed on lovely paper, the colors just bursting out. I was telling my Crazy Monkey Inc. compadre, writer, publisher compadre, Jared Gifford, on his podcast, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well, that there was a Captain Harlock book in French, and I almost bought it, but we got caught up in some other things, and I had to put it back. So it's just amazing that the comics are still delivering in so many places around the world, including with us. So that was a fantastic journey. And, you know, as part of that, part of the model store, actually, they had all these fantastic military aircraft, which, as I mentioned, I'm starting to collect more of those and trying to put them together. My painting is horrible. I started on this FB-111 aircraft, this smaller one. It looks like crap, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But in any case, I'm enjoying the process, and I'm enjoying that, just like I'm enjoying getting back in the flight simulator. And in between that, we wrapped up issue 3. It's done and dusted. It's in PDF form. And again, I'll have more on that, but it's coming real soon. But they also had like sci-fi models and World War II models, and they had Star Wars models, like they had a huge Imperial destroyer and things like that. And when I saw the model, it did get me thinking about a lot of the things that I've read over the past week. And there's been a ton of stuff that I've read on Star Wars Episode 9. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with sort of the going in, but we're right around the corner from Episode 9. We're, not even 30 days out, I think. I think it premieres on the 19th. So we're not even out. And it's fascinating to me to see some of the segments on YouTube, to read some of the articles and things like that. So I'm going to try to sort through that. But before I sort of get into this critical impasse on where sort of Star Wars is and this thing that I'm going to outline, I want to tell you that I've been watching The Mandalorian, and I love it. I love it. I love Baby Yoda. I love The Mandalorian. I loved him sniping Jawas. I love the whole thing from top to bottom. Jon Favreau has hit a grand slam with this, and it's knocked out of the park. And some people are complaining it's not long enough. Some people are, like I am, just absolutely in love with it. I love it. It's must-view TV. Although I haven't got a chance to see the episode that released the day before I recorded this podcast, I will pick that up as soon as possible. But I'm telling you, this is Star Wars, the real deal, Holyfield. It's great. Characters you love, scenarios that are cool, great stuff all around. And that, to me, is getting Star Wars right. And as you begin to look at the landscape of what's happening with Star Wars 9 as I take I'm out of drink. God, how did I not? Oh, there's a little bit of water here. Hang on one second, folks. I need another drink. As you begin to look at the landscape of what's happening with Star Wars 9, there's a lot of fascinating, almost compelling sort of stuff that people are creating based on what they're hearing. I think the most compelling thing to kind of take it from the start is that I've heard is that they've reshot the ending for Star Wars 9 as few as 3 times, but as many as 9 times. And so if you believe that somewhere in that spectrum that there's a truth, then what you've also, the other part of that rumor is that they've reshot it 9 times because they keep testing an ending and it keeps not doing well with whatever focus group they're showing it to. You know, these movies don't just come out on the director's whim. They're tested and screened by the studios. The studios go, fuck no, we're not doing that, or there it is, that's the one we want, or, you know, and it's obviously it's a collaboration, but they still run these things to ground with focus groups in order to, you know, sort of see what will happen. So 3 to 9 endings have been shot for this film. If you believe some of the other rumors, then like Solo, I mean, they didn't change directors midstream, but there's been, like, if you believe this rumor, there's been somewhere between 35 and 75, with the lean or the tipping point being more towards 75% of the film that's been reshot. Like last week, or, you know, just in the recent weeks, we're talking 28, 29 days away from release. And so, again, this is not uncommon. It happened with Solo, but we know what we got with Solo. It's not uncommon for films to reshoot. That's, to me, is incredibly compelling. And then the third piece that's really compelling to me, and this is verified because he's been on The Mandalorian set, I believe, as well, and he's been talking to Jon Favreau. George Lucas is on set. George Lucas is providing input, and I can't talk about the context of input. Some of my acquaintances and colleagues and friends can talk more in depth about that. I don't know. I'm talking specifically to the content and the things that I've read, which again are compelling to me, because for this reason, and this is kind of what I wanted to get at with this. And this sort of stems from The Last Jedi, which I mostly didn't care for. I thought it had probably 5 fantastic Star Wars-y moments. But beyond that, I sort of agree with the reviewer who said it was kind of Rian Johnson doing just, oh, you think this is going to happen? Gotcha! It's this. Or you think this is going to happen? Gotcha! I didn't agree with the Luke Skywalker storyline. Whatever. We can talk about that all day. But this sort of started with The Last Jedi. And it's the sort of compelling YouTube, Twitch, social media, giving equal weight to whatever these folks are saying to whatever media that The Last Jedi creates in order to market it, which is a compelling thing even in our time to have in the information age and the strength of social media and what we as people, citizens, netizens, whatever you want to call us, have. But when Jedi came out, how fried it got by just so many people. And, you know, you could talk about, you know, they weren't into the feminine aspect of it, which they said in Force Awakens, or, you know, too many women empowering and all Holdo and all these different things. I'm not dismissing that. I'm really just talking about the context of the discussion of The Last Jedi sort of having a propaganda campaign against it. And I can't think of another way to say that. You know, there's a propaganda campaign, of course, for films when they come out. That's the way they get you to go in to see a movie like Jumanji with Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson, and I can't think of the other people in the film. They do a shit ton of marketing on the front end. That's all propaganda to compel you to spend $13 to go in and see the film, right? But there seems to be, at least on the Star Wars side, a negative propaganda, almost a counter-marketing. You know, you have counterintelligence. Here's counter-marketing. And here's the notion that, again, I didn't agree with Last Jedi either, but never before have I seen an effort as I did, like I did on Last Jedi, in the counter-marketing idea that, you should stay away, and that it built into this idea, which has grown into this idea that, of course, that Star Wars isn't what we grew up with, which is pure bullshit. It doesn't matter that it's not what we grew up with. On the other hand, Star Wars carried a shit ton of us along with it. Some folks see it as religion, some folks see it as life-changing. There are a number of compelling chemical, physical, mental, otherwise changes that it had on many of our lives. And you could argue that as we dragged along in age, to a degree, Star Wars should have as well. Now, I get that on the business end of this, you have to appeal to children, and George Lucas has said these are stories written by him for children, a children's story to a degree. But a lot of us see adults on the screen, and we want to see how a tale matures or moves on and things like that. So there's this counter marketing that basically says Star Wars ain't for us. It's ruined. It's gone. It's destroyed by a Mary Sue character like Rey. It's destroyed now by where exactly are these last 3 films going? Again, I'm quoting other material, not Jason saying this. What is happening here? Do they have a script? And that's another great rumor, that they've never even written anything down. I mean, they may have had scripts, but basically what I think a majority of folks believe, and I don't necessarily dismiss the idea, is that they were sort of making it up as they went along. I think the disruption, I guess that's a positive word in the tech field, the disruption and innovation of Last Jedi, though, really did sort of make that stand out, right? And doesn't matter, it did $1 billion at the box office, so doom on us, but it's still compelling, the idea that from Force Awakens to now, we've gotten films that have just sort of said, okay, what if we do this next? What if we do this next? Okay, how about if you do this next? There's obviously got to be scripts, but probably more baffling in this Disney, Marvel, Lucasfilm era is that people like Leland Chee, Kathleen Kennedy, and others, at least on the surface for many, who are preaching these things on YouTube and elsewhere, that there isn't seem to be any sort of bulwark between episodes 7 and 9. They don't really seem to tie back to episode 6 so much. They don't really connect with Rebels. They don't really do X, Y, or Z. And I'll be the first to say, I don't give a shit if it connects to Rebels. I watched Rebels, but on the other hand, I don't want to have to go to 7 or 8 different media platforms in order to connect my Star Wars stories together. I was always with Lucas in the camp, in the sense that I could watch the Star Wars films, and that's where my relevance in media and place and time was. If I wanted to get another look at that universe, I could read the EU, but it wasn't part of the Skywalker saga, so to speak. It wasn't the films. So I understood that sort of church and state separation. I was good with it. I was fine with it. Then the EU, of course, became Legends, and they took it out of canon. They're picking and choosing and sort of renaming and redoing, as they did sort of with the first Batman film, which was really Frank Miller's Dark Knight done differently, as has pretty much every film that's come after it that's featured the Batman character has been Frank Miller's Dark Knight done differently. I mean, the gags in Batman versus Superman, when Superman and Batman finally become friends with the flamethrower and the thing where he covers Martha with his cape, that's all Frank Miller Dark Knight stuff. They've taken bits and pieces, they moved along. Pretty soon in Star Wars, we're going to get a Thrawn. We're going to get all of these different things. That all is canon stuff, right? EU stuff, right? So here we are with this massive counter-marketing Star Wars sucks because campaign, and people are kind of seeing through this veneer. You've got this idea that 75% of the film was reshot. You've got this idea that they've got 9 or between 3 and 9 different endings floating around, and it sounds like 28 days from now, or wherever I'm recording this podcast, is pretty close to release day. For lack of a better word, Disney doesn't have its shit together on Star Wars. So now there's millions of us who are older going, is this thing just going to crash land and burn, and I'm just going to have to settle for whatever I get, whatever fan service I get, which is you know there's just going to be a orgy of fan service in this. I mean, it's gone on since Force Awakens, and people want fan service, and I totally get it. They got it in Avengers Endgame. And to a lot of people, I think even Disney has to, in the same way that Steven Spielberg had to repair Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He's gone on record saying, "Oh, Temple of Doom, I did some things. I had to apologize to George by making Last Crusade." I wonder if we're sort of apologizing, or if there will be an apology for The Last Jedi and what happened to Luke. And, all sorts of just sort of, wait, what? Moments that have gone on since The Force Awakens. And the notion that there are many, many smart people and many, many people who may not be industry insiders or who may not have the 411 or the bogey dope on Star Wars from a here's how it really is on the inside of the doors perspective, who can kind of sniff things out and go, what the hell's going on here? So I like this. I bring forward the idea of the counter marketing to say, well, here we are again with Star Wars 9. And this is a pretty big counter-marketing campaign. I think one day I was just sort of sucked in the void, and I think I watched 4 different films that sort of triangulated to the same idea. The endings are being reshot. George Lucas is on set. They've had no story continuity. And if you believe the hype, this is it for Kathleen Kennedy. But that, to me, is based in a sort of misogynistic sort of viewpoint. But maybe it's not. Maybe from a business perspective. But I don't know. From a business perspective, I'm going to say that right. It's a bit late as I'm recording this. A business perspective, she's brought home $1 billion of film, and that's kind of where the threshold. So from a business perspective, she might be right. People are seeing it from a sort of an art storytelling, I want what I want perspective, and they've added this sort of misogynistic twist to it, and maybe they want her gone. Okay. Again, if Disney's putting $1 billion in the bank with Star Wars films, I think she's got a job. But in the whole idea that Miss Kennedy's job is up, I don't buy any of that. She has been in that seat in some capacity since I was 7 or 8 years old. She's not going anywhere for Lucasfilm. But it's an interesting, compelling part of this whole sort of counter marketing of Star Wars 9, right? So here we have it. We have had some interesting marketing of Star Wars 9. If you believe other stories that Star Wars toy sales are flat, I'll tell you that the stores that I've gone into have had the same clearance stuff Star Wars. It hasn't moved. Stuff from Force Awakens, stuff from Last Jedi, a lot of the Red Soldiers and the Rey figures and a lot of different things. Stuff that just doesn't move has been there for a long, long time. So, I mean, there's that. So you start to triangulate this stuff in, and there's something to it. There's something very interesting to it. I'm a little frightened. Let me give you a little personal background. I have watched Star Wars films since day one, since May 25th, 1977. I was in the studio in San Diego, California, in the round theater that I can't think of the name of off the top of my head in Mission Valley, California, just outside of Hotel Circle. I was there. And I have loved that film and those films my entire life. And while they're not religion to me, they are compelling and warm and home to me. There's a tremendous sense of that. And while I am not as what's the right word? I'm not as active in the Star Wars community. I have a B-wing hanging over my fucking head right now. If I look back, I have a row of toys that my father sent me, that my friend Michael's given me, all of these things that point to me being a Star Wars lover. So I want to see the end of the Skywalker saga that began on May 25th, 1977. I want to see it wrap up in a way that is just as exciting and fulfilling and dramatic and holy shit compelling as that was, right? And it won't. That's okay. I'm 50. I was 7. I get that we evolve, that compelling and interesting and dramatic becomes a much different sort of bit of chemistry than it did when you're 7 years old. At 7 years old, you don't know shit. You're sitting there with your dick in your hand and you're going, wow! At 50, you've seen a few things. You know what's going on. You don't have the ignorance is bliss formula. You're just sort of going, all right, impress me. And there have been a number of cases where over the past few years where I've walked away and gone, wow, that's impressive. Mad Max Fury Road was an impressive movie to me. Atomic Blonde was an impressive film to me. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy with Gary Oldman was one of the most impressive films I've ever seen in a long time. I got up and I went, wow, that is incredible. And there's a few others I could name. So I just want that feeling. This is, and I think I didn't talk about this, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was not, and I had big hopes for that. And that's okay, though. It's still an okay film. The point is, I get that I'm not going to get the sort of shock and awe in a positive way that I got when I was 7 that I am at 50. It's okay. I'm good with that. What I'm not good with is all of these things that the countermarketing or the rumor mill or whatever you want to call it are bringing forth, and knowing, being in the business that I'm in, that where there's smoke, there's fire. And knowing that there's probably a good bit of it that's probably true. Knowing from working on the science fiction show and working with my friends there that there's a lot of this that could be true, and not making excuses for it. So now I'm going into December 19th with my expectation bar here, lower, versus here, higher. I should go here, lower, versus here, higher, right? That's probably right. So, and that's okay, but I've minimized that. I remember I was talking to somebody before. I was talking to Jared on his podcast, and I was saying, I just remember how incredibly frustrated I was with the desolation of Smaug, that they didn't kill Smaug in the second movie. They were just stringing us along, and the whole movie was Bilbo and Smaug love scene, which it's great and it's brilliant CGI and it's Benedict Cumberbatch, but I didn't like the film. I liked the first film, The Hobbit. I liked it. I love that, as a matter of fact. The other two films, especially the third film, oy vey. So, that to me, in the same way, that's why The Last Jedi was frustrating. I just don't buy Luke's storyline from that film. I just don't buy it. As one fantastic literary article I read said, Luke is the embodiment of hope. He was the embodiment of hope all the way through Return of the Jedi, in deed and word. Now, all of a sudden, you've taken him to, he's had to be a recluse and fly off to Irish Island, and all of a sudden he's crabby, obstinate curmudgeon? I don't buy it. I just don't. He has more resolve than that. He's Jedi Knight, he's Jedi Master. So that, to me, is frustrating, along with other things that were frustrating about Last Jedi. So here we are with Rise of Skywalker, 28 days away, and the counter-marketing is telling us a lot of things that are happening, and either that is a fantastic orchestrated effort to gut Disney's box office returns, which I don't think will happen. There's too much writing here. It's the last movie of the series. It's a Star Wars film, and it wraps up a saga. Not only these 3 films, but the other 9 films. As much counter propaganda that you want to throw at it, or rumor mill or whatever, I don't think it's going to sink the box office. On the other hand, Iger saw what happened to Solo, and he said, we're not doing any more Solo movies. Solo made its bank, I believe, but that doesn't mean it compels Disney to do it again. Now, again, I like their strategy with Mandalorian. I like their strategy with the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So that may prove to be the vehicle where old Star Wars lives on. I don't know. Because, I'm the first one to jump up and say, yes, these films everything is generational, right? When we look back at old films from even the 70s and 80s, there's some stuff in the 80s that's just like, wow, I can't believe I really liked that in the 80s. I mean, I was a big fan of The Greatest American Hero growing up on television. I can't watch it now. It's like, ooh, cringe. I mean, it's fun, but I wouldn't sit down and watch it for a half hour. There are just some things that you watch again and you're like, okay, so Star Wars has to evolve based on the tenets and the culture and the tone of the time. But I don't think these 3 films did that. And the people in the counter propaganda don't feel they did either. These 2 films, anyway, 7 and 8, waiting on 9. So I've said a lot. What am I trying to say? I think what I'm trying to say is it's fascinating to me, and that's why I came on the air with you to do this, it's fascinating to me that there is this tremendous counter propaganda. I mean, it's not in place for Fast and Furious films, although if you believe the hype, Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel hate each other. It's not there for James Bond films. You can go on and on. For Star Wars, it seems to be a very concerted effort. But I mean, there's a lot of people who make a lot of revenue on the side of Star Wars and who have in podcasts and other things talking about Star Wars news. So it's an interesting sort of fabric that's weaved here that goes over this. All right, let's cut all that out. What do I think? I think I believe some of it. I don't believe all of it. I think some of it is compelling. I think there are some impressive moments in the trailer that I'm very much looking forward to sort of sussing out. I agree with the notion that Rey is a Mary Sue, and we'll probably find out that she is. My theory is that she is all the compelling parts of Luke and Yoda and all the Jedi Knights, and she's some sort of clone where they infused her with all this clone energy, shot her up with all their midichlorians, however you want to say it. I don't think Kylo Ren has been that compelling a villain to me. Darth Vader was 100 million times squared more compelling and evil in his 2.5 minutes of footage in Rogue One than Kylo Ren has been shirtless or shirted in the last 2 films. And I just think the other things that sort of hang on it are tenuous at best. I just think there's, I'm looking for story and characters, and I don't know. And again, you could throw in other weird things in here too, like how perhaps Hollywood has had to rewrite films to get into China and how that's affected story and visual and other content. And maybe that's what we're seeing as an outcrop of that. And that's why we as Americans are so frustrated. We can't tell a story in the United States that, with the same symbolism and ideology that would translate over into the world's biggest market. 2 billion people versus 300 million people or 350 million people. So maybe that's part of it too. And maybe that's what we're seeing is well, yeah, you may not like it, but this is a, Chinese ready film or whatever. That's just a thought. But that said, I'm still looking forward to the film coming. I'm still looking on seeing it on its own merits. It's just the notion that this sort of counter-marketing campaign and what it comes up with seems very pinpoint focused on telling us that Star Wars ain't Star Wars anymore and that what they're giving us is an inferior product. Well, of course Star Wars ain't Star Wars anymore. Star Wars ain't Star Wars. When Star Wars was made, when Empire came along, it was a different Star Wars. When Return of the Jedi came along, it was a different. My friend Mike and I used to talk about, how many effects they could put on the screen at once in Star Wars? 8. You know how many they put on the screen in Return of the Jedi? 601. I don't remember the specific numbers, but right. Things evolve, right? We got to Phantom Menace. We got to Attack of the Clones. We got to Revenge of the Sith. Things were different. Things evolved. George Lucas was finally like, these are I can finally tell my story because the CGI and the films are advanced enough. Now I can do this. We're here. Good. And people were like, what did you just make for us? And I'm now a prequel apologist. I think that what the prequels gave us is more George Lucas, more original content, more original ideas, no fan service, and the notion that they are what they are. And, love them or hate them, they're still the prequels to the films that George Lucas intended and thought of. He hasn't gone back and altered that like he did Star Wars on Disney Plus and changing Han and Greedo's scene again, has he? Nope, the prequels are pretty much intact the way he is. So I think that says something. It doesn't mean you got to like them. Doesn't mean you got to hate them. It just means there they are. So I'm kind of a prequel apologist now in the sense that, original content, new ships, all sorts of new stuff, a new look at things. I'm okay with that. 7, 8, and what our 9 are, I don't know, because I don't know what those films are trying to do. I'm not sure I understand what I'm trying to get out of watching Rey's journey from whipping Finn's ass on Tatooine to wherever we will end up in episode 9. I'm not at all compelled by Finn anymore. Somebody brought up a great point of he should have got his ass kicked in 7 by Captain Phasma at least once in order to build up, him kicking her ass in episode 9, or at least something along those lines. And he shouldn't have did it in Last Jedi. So there's an enormous amount here where I have a lot of mixed feelings. But I'll say this, and I'll say it as in resonant voice as I can. I just want 9 to give me a little, not a lot, not all of it, a little of what I felt sitting in that theater, May 25th, 1977. They're going to take my money. They know that people like me are going to be sitting in that theater and go, okay, let's wrap it up. They've got to know that. They brought George Lucas on set. They've got to know that. J.J. Abrams has lied before about his films and saying what's coming or not. That's fine, but if he's working with George Lucas and they're sort of saying, this is the way, okay, I have a lot more confidence in that. I suppose what I don't have confidence in and believe is if they're reshooting X percentage of the film at the last second, and if they've got 9 endings and not one of them is panning out, that's challenging. I can't think of another word. That ain't good. But just give me a little of what I felt as a 7-year-old, May 25th, 1977. Just give me some of that in an original form, not as fan service, and I think I can go forward with that. I'm good with whatever the new trilogy will be, and I'm fine, and I think I'm good with that. So, in any case, episode 9 on the horizon, and I wanted to offer you that bit of look at what's coming and bring the podcast back with that. All right, so earlier I told you about Crazy Monkey Inc., our publisher. Here's one more discussion of that. These guys are, they're writers, they're artists, they're colorists, they're letterists, and they're in the business of trying to create content, compelling content that makes you want to read again and again and buy again and again. And I think they are doing that in earnest, and they're doing great stuff. So I hope you'll take the time to head over to indieplanet.com and search Crazy Monkey Inc. and go through the catalog, buy a book or two, give it a shot. Find the free books. My book is free from Thanksgiving Thursday until the following Monday. Both books, issues 1 and 2, will both be free. You can grab them both. I hope you'll give that a look, and then you'll get into issue 3, which I should let you know. So anyway, Crazy Monkey Inc. available on indieplanet.com and on Spinwiz Comics from my friend Jeff Palumbo's site. Spinwiz Comics also has Crazy Monkey Inc. Lots of great titles, lots of great stuff. So Vorpal issue 3 is in the can, and I need to let you know that I will be having a Kickstarter for issue 3, and I will be a pain in your ass for about 30 days, compelling you to do what you can to pick up issue 3, and there'll be some great deals for not only issue 3, but issues 2 and 1 to go with that, and some other extra goodies that will be coming out. The Kickstarter should appear, I'm guessing, right around Black Friday, if I get my shit together and get it all launched by then. So in any case, be on the lookout for a Kickstarter about Vorpal 3, and we will bring you a fantastic issue 3, lovingly done art-wise by Diego Albuquerque. He's so great, and colored by my man Mike Montalvo. I lettered it, I wrote it, I did the cover art, which Mike colored, and there'll be one more piece of art on the back of the book that I still have to do, but I forgot about it, but it won't take too long. I already know what I want to do there. In any case, the Kickstarter is coming for issue 3. I hope you will support that. I hope you'll share it 1,000,000 times over, and I appreciate everything and anything you've done for Vorpal up to this point. If you bought a couple of issues to support me, I am very much humbled by that, and I hope you'll continue to buy the issues. Just to let you know, I think I've talked about this before, but this particular chapter of Vorpal is 4 issues long. Issue 4 is underway. I've got 8 pages done for that. I've got some script rewiring that I'm still working on, but I'm trying to get issue 3 wrapped up. I'm also creating a compendium of short stories based in the 9 Systems Vorpal universe. That will also be available right around Christmas time. Also makes a great or print stocking stuffer. I'm also working with someone to build the book cover. So those are all pretty exciting things that are coming up. The Dollar Box Read podcast should return to its original format. I keep telling you that. I know. I'm like an abusive person. I'm sorry. But if you're here for the reads, I apologize. Again, part of it is the comics are up in my attic. I got to get them down here, and it's just with my health and everything else going on, I just haven't got them down here to pick out 3 comics and give you a favorite comic of the week. But I have been enjoying presenting you some other arguments and discussion along the way. So I hope you'll do me that diligence as we go forward and continue to listen to the show and continue to listen to what I have to offer. In any case, thank you for listening to this episode of Dollar Box Reads. I hope you'll join me again next week for a new episode as we move further toward episode 9, further toward Vorpal number 3, and further toward so many things, a brand new year, 2020. As Sammy Hagar said, 2020 ain't nothing wrong with my vision, and lots of things coming up. I appreciate you listening. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.